Alright, so this is a repair of how to replace your brake line on a 944 Porsche. This is a 1984 944. So it's an earlier model. I don't know if they changed the way that the brake system, like the lines, work later on in later years. But overall, this is going to be a pretty universal thing. Changing brake lines is not that difficult. So I've got a couple different things here for the repair. Firstly, we have our wrenches on the bigger side, which is going to be the rubber line that we're taking off. It is going to be a 17 millimeter. We're going to be using the open end. Ideally, you do want to use a line wrench for this, but I don't have any line wrenches that are in 11 or a 17. So I'm just going to make do with a box end. The reason why you want to use a line end is that it's not going to slip off as easy or round anything, which rounding a brake line is going to be a pain in your butt. Next, I have a couple of wire brushes. The reason I have these is that it is old and it is very dirty, so spot cleaning is going to help me a lot. Next, I have a chisel. I also have a hammer. I don't have that nearby, but I do have one. I'm going to be using it. The reason I have a chisel is that there is a clip in here that, I'm zooming in on it, hopefully that focuses. Yeah, but so that right there is a clip. You can't even see it because it's so dirty and corroded. On the other side, it was rusted very badly, so it was almost like it was welded together. So I had to use a blowtorch and a hammer and chisel to break it apart, and then I was able to get the clip off, but it was really stuck on there because of all the rust. So maybe that might be something useful to you when doing your repair. And lastly, the brake line that we're going to be replacing. This is a braided steel cable. And the reason why I'm replacing this is, one, the car is very old. Two, I'm rehauling all of the brake system. So I'm replacing the calipers, pistons, brake pads, rotors as well. I'm going to be doing this in a later video. Rubber lines, when they get old and they start corroding, they tend to collapse. And so that can cause brake drag because they'll collapse and then it won't allow the return of brake fluid back through the line. And also, if it collapses, there's a very slight chance that brake application will not happen. So, just, yeah, sounds pretty sketchy, and I don't want that happening. So, and I bought all 4 brake lines for this car for, I think it was $60. So not a terrible deal, especially when it comes to something this high quality. Alright, and now we're back. So, let me zoom in here. That line is broken off. I got the nut out and then removed the other side of it. There is a clip that holds it in. This is what it looks like. It is pretty dirty. I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up with a wire brush before I put it back in, obviously. Yeah, so this 11 millimeter, it's not a line wrench. I stopped using it because I was afraid I was gonna round off this nut right here. There we go. You got a better look at it. It does fit around it nice, but it's like, it felt like it was gonna slip way too much. And I already have a problem right here where a nut is rounded off pretty terribly. This is still salvageable because if I get this side off, I can just take the whole caliper assembly off of it, and then I can respray everything and keep this in. So at the end of the day, I don't really need to take it off if I can get it off from here, but you know, hopefully it doesn't cause any issues because it's still on there good and tight. So I can go ahead and respray it whenever I'm at that point. And so whenever I was at the store, I went to Lowe's, got some Craftsman stuff. Some people like these. I haven't really used them myself, but I know a lot of people at my shop use Craftsman and stuff. I picked this setup for, I think it was $22. And it doesn't have any skips, which is very good. So it has a 11mm line wrench, which is kind of hard to come by for some reason. I don't really know. Maybe people just don't use 11mm on their lines at all. That would make sense because it's not really that common of a size for a wrench. But yeah, these should work pretty good for getting that last bolt off. Hey guys, back with a little bit of an update. I tried a whole bunch of stuff in between now and the last clip. And so I got some different tools out, as you can see, and you might be curious as to why I'm using a impact gun here when it comes to a line. But this ended up, even though I had a, jeez, this light's so dark now for some reason. I guess it's dying. This part of the line wrench, part of the line, the nut had rounded off almost completely, but this side was still good. And so it started rounding a little bit, and I'd gotten this earlier whenever I went to the store. It's Craftsman, so you can still get this at Lowe's too. I highly suggest picking this up if you're having a big problem with any nut not coming off, because you could just, you know, crack it. And so essentially what it does is this part spins freely and it adjusts how far in this part is. So as it telescopes in and out, it's gonna put a dividing pressure onto the nut. So it's kind of like an axe, but it holds it in place in the circle. It's a 19mm on the other end right here. So I think that's like 11/16. I don't fully remember. I don't really use standard stuff. But I used this. It's my Milwaukee Impact. This thing is pretty badass. And so I just put it around the other end like this, snaked it around, had it like this, and then sent it all the way. I didn't end up cracking the thing all the way off. But as far as making a success story, I think all that really needs to happen is a whole lot of vibration to get it to crack loose. Because as I was doing that, I was also holding the rounded off nut with a pair of channel locks. That's because it was just so rounded off I couldn't really even use a wrench. Might be worth using a vice grip, but it was just kind of a hassle to mess around with it and try and get it locked on. So these were just a little bit easier to hold into place. But got this off. I'm definitely gonna buy a new one, or at least cut off that nut there and put a new fitting on it. Also with this other side, I don't think I'll need to do that if I'm just going to be replacing this one end right here. So that was kind of a nightmare to get done, but it worked out, I guess. While I was doing it, I didn't know that there could be so much dirt on a car, because every time I zapped it on, and there was just somehow more dirt that fell on my face. But I guess now I'm gonna go ahead and order some stuff for the car, as in see if I can try these, find these fittings and a repair tool to open up the end, so then it's like a pressure fit, so then I can get it back to the same state that it was with a new fitting on there. I might keep this side, I might break it off and do the same thing, or if I can't find either of those, I'll just buy a new line entirely, because I know that they're on Pelican Parts for about $60. I don't want to pay $60 though. I'd rather pay like $12 for a new fitting and a tool. But now that gives me access to take off this caliper, replace the rotor, take this shield off, and replace the brake pads and rebuild this caliper. So good progress. Now all that's left to do is replace the old line that I have with this steel braided cable one. It's just going to go right in place there. and it's going to be 11 on that side and a 17 on the inside. Alright, and now the repair's done. I have the new line on. Getting it back in was a little bit tricky because the angle that it went in to the little hole there was a little bit off because the bracket was bent a little bit whenever I was taking everything out. So just got a pry bar and bent it back into place, and then everything went in very smoothly. So that's what it should look like whenever you're done. Imagine that that is connected back up.